Hi, and welcome to the 10 square meter workshop. Today I'll be making something I've been meaning to do for a while, a dead hammer. What's a dead hammer, you ask? Let me explain. Let's say you want to clamp something accurately in a milling machine vise. First of all, you put a pair of parallels of known thickness, mount your piece of metal on top and tighten up the vise, pressing down firmly. But when you tighten it up, due to the geometry, the jaws can lift slightly, which means if you feel your parallels, you find they're actually slack. The standard solution is to take a hammer and tap down on it. This forces it down onto the parallels, and you can feel to see if they've actually worked, and yes, it has that time, but it doesn't always work. That's because you can get bounce on the hammer. It's solid and it will bounce back, and that can allow the piece to jump back up again. I was using a brass hammer for this. You need something soft so it won't mark the workpiece. But brass is not that good. Copper's much better. Lead's better still, but of course that will soon get chewed up banging on metal. A dead hammer has a face of, let's say, copper, and in the tube behind it has lead shot. This means it hardly bounces at all. A much better method. So I'm going to make one. My starting point was a piece of 28mm brass tubing, which had been chrome plated. The first step was to turn off the chroming. After a bit of cleaning up, it was then turned off. I'm making the handle joining piece out of a piece of 25mm brass. First I'll face it off. Center drill it. Pilot drill. And then 12mm. And then bored out to 18mm. As I get close, I check the internal ball. With the inside done, I can turn down the outside to 22mm. With that done, it's off to the mill. I need to scallop the handle part so it fits the head accurately. I plan to do this using a boring bar, but first of all I need to set it to the size of the head. I'll do that with a bit of scrap alley. And here you can see the marks, 28mm. I found the centre with the edge finder in the usual way. With the boring bar back in, I could start the process. Seems to work fine. Just got to keep going. And this is the result. And a tri-fit. Yep, that's pretty good. And so it's back in the lathe to part it off. And reverse to clean it up. Next, I need a hole in the head. Yep, I do mean that. I'm drilling 5mm for 6mm tapping. I then put in the 6mm thread using a tap follower. This allows me to put a bolt through to secure it for brazing. For the shaft I could have used nylon like this Thor hammer, but I didn't have any nylon, and I do have a 3D printer, so I printed one in grey. For the grip I used black TPU, it's quite flexible. Put the two together and I've got a working handle. It'll be secured to the head using the 6mm threaded rod. For the end nut I turned down a piece of brass to 12mm clearance, drilled out 5mm and then tapped out 6mm using a tap follower. The body was then turned down to 8mm clearance, and I use the word clearance advisedly. The internal diameters of 3D printed items are not that accurate, and it's always best to check that it's a snug fit. Parted and reversed, the end was trimmed to size before putting a slot in the end with a slitting saw. And so that's another part made. With those parts put together, I can mark the length on the threaded rod. I want the faces to be copper, so I'll turn them out of this slug. It's a bit oversized, but it'll do. I've clamped it in the chuck using a pair of parallels to make sure it's square. Copper isn't easy stuff to turn, and it's best done with light cuts. I turned it down to 28mm from both sides, the size of the head. That doesn't matter because it's going to get divided in the middle anyway. I then turned a recess 2mm deep to fit inside the head. This I hope will be a press fit before it's brazed. The parts were then parted, cleaned and degreased. The ends were pressed in, ready for brazing. The copper plates are about 6.5mm thick. I didn't want too much what I think of as unsprung weight. Now comes the brazing stage, which I'll attempt to film, but it's not easy. What I didn't show was flipping it over and doing the other side, so there's now brazing right round the circumference. The result is a pretty sorry looking mess, but it will clean up. With the high spots turned up from the lathe, I can now braze the centrepiece in. And with that attached, even more cleaning up to do. By the miracle of video, not to mention the Scotch-Brite wheel, it's cleaned up. And now for the filling. This is number 9 shot. I've had this for donkey's years, ever since I used to shoot clays. Finally got a use for it. I'm aiming for a loose fill, and of course I should be filling it to the bolt hole. After 220 grams it feels relatively full, so I shall put a bit of Loctite on the bolt and insert it. Next the handle. And finally the securing bolt. Final step was to super glue the grip to the shaft. It's now ready to test. Trying it on the vice body, it certainly feels inert, so let's give it a go. Yeah, that's pretty tight. Yeah, works very well. Well, I'm going to count that as a success. It works very well. Very pleased with it. That's all for this time. See you next time. Bye for now.